Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Breaking Bread with Good Thought Consulting, the takeover version. My name is Austin Rogers.
Hey, I'm Natalie.
Hey, I'm Tanya.
All right, y'all. So welcome back again. Let's get started.
Alrighty, so I'm going to help us start today. So it is 2021 and it already has been a busy year. So how are you guys feeling about vaccinations? So obviously COVID-19 vaccines are out. It's kind of hard to get them depending on where you live, but how are you guys feeling about getting them or if you've gotten them already?
Yeah, so I haven't gotten mine yet. I'm open to it a little bit more than I was initially, but I'm not in like the first tier of people that are qualified to get the vaccine just yet, so I'm waiting until my turn. But I have seen a lot of people being hesitant about getting the vaccine, and I completely understand why, especially people in Black and minority communities, because of America's history and the distrust between those communities and healthcare professionals. But yeah, I'm hopeful and prayerful that this is going to be good for the greater community. But yeah, I do plan on getting my vaccine when my time comes.
Yeah, did you say prayerful? I like that word. I'm going to use that. How about you, Jocelyn?
I'm probably on the other end of the spectrum because I have not gotten it. Don't have any initial plans on getting it. Similar to what Natalie said, just about the distrust and the miscommunication amongst the communities. Not to be cliche or to kind of beat a dead horse, but a lot of times when it comes to our communities, they don't really care about much else. But when it comes to this vaccine or to getting the trials out into the communities, it seems like it's a priority. But when it comes to any other disparities that impact us that we're not, really focused on, several things about it that are odd to me, like how fast it came out and, how typical vaccines have a piece of the actual virus that is included in it, but this one doesn't include that portion of it. I don't know. I'm just gonna wait till it's my time on the other end of it.
I mean, I think you're speaking for what a lot of people experience, like both of you, and you're both like medical professionals, like in healthcare. So it's even more important that if you feel doubt about it, that there's not work being done to be transparent about the vaccine. And actually, I can't kind of keep thinking like, this is a country that can send you so many things in the mail about who's running for office, but can't send like everyone a pamphlet on all the details of a vaccine or
Right.
when you're going to get it. Like, it's not that hard. Like, ask any coordinator for any project in any industry. They've done it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point too, just the lack of communication. And I feel like they're using these high level personnel to kind of pump it out to us, but also the high level personnel have a extended amount of resources that the average person doesn't have. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm not 100% opposed to it, but I'm not rushing to it to be the first in line. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'll see. Have you gotten it?
No, I'm scheduled for next week, and I'm kind of nervous. Like, I know people who've had flu-like symptoms after the second dose, but I'm gonna get it. I'm partially motivated because I have a newborn nephew that I want to be able to see safely. So it's a little selfish for me, really.
Yeah.
How
do you feel about? Oh, sorry to cut you off, Jocelyn.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say I've also heard that there's been extreme symptoms after the second dose. Not so much the first one, but the second one.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you guys, how do you think, or what are your thoughts about people traveling? I have a feeling that there's going to be the vaccine requirements. I think there actually is already for international travel to have like the negative test show, but how do you think that's going to impact people's willingness to travel? We already saw people were doing it willy-nilly before the vaccine came out. I can only imagine how it's going to be now that they feel secure and safe with the vaccine.
Prayerful, willy-nilly, nah.
I don't know. Like, I have a friend of mine that's going to Turks and Caicos in a month, and she said that she has to get tested before she even comes back into the United States. So I feel like the stipulations are going to remain the same, if not be more stringent. Hopefully, Biden will come with some regulations that will help ease this a little bit. I don't know how the travel is going to change personally. Mm-hmm.
Same. I mean, there's all this talk about this variant, and they say the vaccine works for it, and I believe that. But we don't know enough, you know. We don't know enough about the variant, you know. So.
Right.
Hold up, y'all. I'm sorry. I might go off on a tangent. Where the hell did the variant come from? What is it? Where did it come from? Why? How?
I mean, if you really want me to nerd out, I could, but I don't know if you want that to happen.
Does this happen? Like, is this a thing? Did somebody create it? Was it lab created? Did somebody know about it and we just hearing about it?
I think it's that viruses mutate to survive. I know.
Come on, geek out on us, Tanya.
It's just that the geeking out is just that any organism, anything, I mean, it's a virus. It's like not totally like a living thing, right? But it will change based on what it needs to do to survive. It adapts. And so it's adapting, right? So it's becoming more transmissible and more severe because more people have already been infected. So host people have been infected. And so there are less people to infect. And now the vaccine is out. So there's like a second reason. But it is weird. And you're totally right. Why isn't this like on the front page? Why isn't science more accessible? Like, otherwise people are going to remain skeptical, as they should be.
I don't know about this thing, y'all.
What country are you moving to, Jocelyn?
Canada.
It's time for us to get up out of here.
Canada.
Changing topics now. It is also today, the day we're filming, is the inauguration day. We have our 46th president. Woo!
I don't know if I should raise the roof or I don't know.
Right.
No, I'm like kind of nervous though. I'm like, ooh, like maybe. Like hopefully this shit doesn't hit the fan.
Right.
How were your guys' days around that?
My day was good. Yeah, it was nice to see it pan out and happen calmly. I didn't get to see the whole thing. I saw the swearing in of President Biden and Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. But I didn't get to see the whole entire ceremony, but I definitely caught snippets of our First Lady, Michelle Obama, and Barack. And it was just really, it was like a big sigh of relief. Like, this is really happening. Like, it's no longer just maybe, or there's these possibilities of X, Y, Z happening. Of course, we're just at the very beginning of it, so there's a lot that could happen, but it was nice to kind of have that sigh of relief and kind of see, especially seeing how diverse the cabinet is and seeing the diversity just within the inauguration ceremony was really nice. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done from both the president and the vice president, from things that they've said and shared with the public as far as their plans for their first days or first months in office. So there's a lot that I hope people still hold them accountable to. And I hope that they're receptive of that critique and that feedback, because we've been waiting for a lot of changes for a long time, and they've promised some good things and promised some lofty things to the American people. So hopefully they're able to follow through, looking at these student loan balances. But there's a lot of other things, of course, that they've also promised. But yeah, just hoping that they're open to the accountability and the critique that the American people have now that they're in office.
Nicely said.
Yes, go sign. So I have a question. Unless, Tanya, you want to answer, unless you want to go first, about your thoughts, your feedback on the inauguration and what you think for the future.
No, ask your question. Go ahead.
So in you guys' lifetime, so I think personally, I've probably been eligible to vote maybe 3 or 4 times, I think, since turning 18. But has there been another presidential election that you all have been either old enough to be aware of or old enough to vote in that you've paid as much attention to or have been invested as much in your life? Was it Obama?
Yeah.
2008. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I voted in for Obama. Was the first president I was eligible to vote for in 2008 as well. But this election was the first one that I really paid well, actually this one and the previous election where 45 was in office. But these were the first two elections that I really paid close attention to from a political standpoint and what this means for me as an American citizen. Obama was just, yes, we got a Black guy in office. It was a different kind of just overwhelming excitement that came with that. Of course, everyone isn't perfect, so his presidency and his tenure wasn't perfect, but for me, it was more that excitement. It was my first time being eligible to vote, first Black president, whoop, 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 whoop. This time again, going along that same diversity strain of being excited from that aspect, but also coming out of the 45th president's tenure and administration, it was just a lot of like, please, Lord, just desperation. Actually, desperation is the word I'm looking for, of wanting something new and different from that. So yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Yeah.
Me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Canada over there.
You said what?
I said Canada over there.
Yeah. How do you say Canada?
So I was not eligible to vote for Obama until the second term in 2012. But I also was still young, like just graduated from high school, like really didn't know a whole bunch different about it. But this one I think it was more important to me because I think all of the involvement and the movement and the necessity and the importance of what this meant to everybody beyond the whoever's, I think was more impressive to me, and why that was more important to me. So this one personally to me was one of the most monumental I've been able to be a part of in my lifetime, as an adult person.
And what does it feel like?
Man, I mean, I just think just so what Stacey Abrams did was freaking phenomenal. I mean, bizarre. And Kamala being able to break the glass ceiling of what we probably would have never expected to see in our lifetimes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, 4 years ago, we were expecting Hillary Clinton to be the first female president, and that didn't happen for God knows how many reasons. So for this to be history that we're able to see between, Barack Obama being the first Black president, and now us being able to see the first female Black vice president, South Asian American woman vice president in our lifetime. I mean, I'm excited for the future. Like, I'm excited to see what's next. Like, what more can come from this? So I'm excited. I'm super excited and hopeful. Not overly hopeful, not like, oh my God, our problem's going to be solved, but like hopeful that there's an ability for something to come after this.
Mm-hmm. Cautiously optimistic.
Yes.
Yes, that's phrase for today. Geez, now I'm just gonna text you being like, how do I feel? Because like I know you know the words.
What's the word?
It's funny because I love word games. Like, word games are my favorite, and number games. Well, anyway, we'll get to that another time.
Oh my God, total side note. Ever since you told me you're obsessed with voices, I started noticing people's voices now, and I feel a little bit like a creep because I'm like always like doing that face. Like, what does their voice sound like?
Oh my gosh. Alrighty, so we are going to pivot into our deep dive for today, and we're going to talk and focus on mentorship and sponsorship, the difference between the two, how these two have influenced your professional and career development paths, and all that comes with that. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the difference between mentorship and sponsorship, because a lot of people, I think, are just now starting to hear the word sponsor come up a lot more. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference in my shout out later in the session. But I just wanted to talk to you all about if you see a difference in mentorship and sponsorship in your lives, and do you have mentors and or sponsors that have helped you or that continue to help you in your career journeys?
Hey, I ain't gonna lie. What do you consider to be a sponsor as opposed? Don't laugh, Tanya.
No, I have the same question.
No, this is good. So for my definition, a lot of people, of course, everyone has a variation of the definition, but a mentor to me is someone you can go to for advice. You kind of see them and you aspire to be them in their roles, their titles, their career path, etc. A sponsor, I feel like, takes that and like blows it up to a whole nother level. So a sponsor for me feels like someone who not only can give you advice, or someone who not only shares resources with you, but also someone who walks you into rooms that you not otherwise would not have been in, versus just like, oh, here's an opportunity to take advantage of this. Okay, here's an opportunity. Let me plug you in with so-and-so. Come to this meeting, like literally taking you along that journey with you versus just giving you the resources for you to figure out on your own. Sponsorship really takes that to a whole other level. And I think the key thing for both mentor and sponsorship is being intentional and asking explicitly the people that you want to be in those roles for you. Because I know for me, when I was first starting in my professional career, I would find someone that I admire and that I really liked and that I aspired to be, and I'd be like, oh, that's going to be my mentor. But I never told them that I wanted them to be my mentor. So when I really learned the nooks and crannies of mentorship, expectation setting, meeting frequently, getting, what are you hoping to get out of this kind of level setting, what goals you have for this kind of relationship, because it is a transactional relationship. And it sounded weird for me to admit that or to say that when I first kind of started in the professional space and trying to identify mentors and sponsors, but it really is supposed to be a mutually beneficial relationship. So it's not just you mooching off of someone or just getting things from them, but there should also be something that you can do for them as well. A quote that I always keep with me that I got when I was in my administrative fellowship in MUSC is always be a resource for others. So it's not just about what can other people do for you, but what can you do for them in return? And again, it may be hard to conceptualize that for someone who's in a C-suite position or someone who's, in this really high level role and you're just starting out in an entry level position. Like, what can I possibly offer them? But there's a lot more than you think that you could offer them if you just, sit down and kind of have these conversations with them. So those would be the differences I would say between mentorship and sponsorship and the importance of them in career.
Whoa, explosion, fireworks.
Right? Did you see my face? I was like,
I was just like writing. I was like, oh God, write on this random piece of paper.
All right, Tanya, what do you think? That was an awesome like synopsis, Natalie, by the way. I never thought like that. That was great. That was awesome.
Wait, Nat, do you mind if I ask you a question about it?
No, go ahead.
So is that something in your field that they've like distinguished, sponsorship and mentorship, or is it something more you've like stumbled upon in other groups or online?
Yeah, so I've heard about it. It's not industry specific or like my job or my like role specific. I actually heard about it. Like I've heard about it, but I actually learned about it from someone that I know who's going to be my shout out. So I won't say her name just yet, but she's really focused and honed in. Like she has this passion project. She works as a healthcare executive now, but has a side passion project of sponsoring women in their careers or being a part of their sponsorship journeys to ensure that they're being placed in the positions that they're deserving of and that they have a clear path to progress forward. And so for me, I kind of just happened upon it from a contact as far as learning about it, but I've heard about it. Not sure exactly where I first heard about it, but I've kind of heard about it here and there, but just never really understood it until I spoke to her about it.
I see. Okay. So what I'm having so many thoughts, but so first, there's a really good episode of the Michelle Obama podcast about mentorship. And I kind of want to listen to it again, but she talks to one of her mentors who helped her a lot in her profession. And her mentor says something similar to what you said, which is like, it is transactional, that like somebody coming to work, a mentee in this case, and like trying their hardest, even if it's a tough day, even if they're having a bad day, means a lot. And I took that to heart because that's really hard to do, like, especially lately with politics and the world we live in, like still showing up at 100% every day has been hard for me at times. And I kind of like when mentors acknowledge that, like when they acknowledge what's going on in the world. But I think at least in, I don't know if this is like graduate school or clinical psych, it's definitely true for research. Like mentorship and sponsorship are synonymous. Like a mentor is supposed to be doing both things, and you don't often have any motivation to do it. Like if you're in hard money, which is like you're a professor at a school, like it's part of your job. But if you're somewhere like in a hospital system or anywhere else, really, you're just doing it out of the kindness of your heart. Like there's no guarantee or there's no payment. Right. It's not put into your structure. And I feel like that's why it doesn't happen often and doesn't happen well, you know, like even when it is there, people don't meet with their mentees. So I'm not talking like specifically about myself, but I guess, I don't know. That's kind of like what you made me think about from what you just first said.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a level of being intentional about it that makes it more successful in many cases, or makes the relationship more successful. And it doesn't always have to be like, when I say, I think people get intimidated or get put off by the transactional word, and I definitely did too, because I don't like thinking of relationships like that. But someone said to me, why do you go to the doctor? And they're like, well, because you're sick and the doctor to have what you need to feel better. And if you're going to a mentor, it's because they have something that you need to do X, Y, or Z. So think of it in the same way. It doesn't have to be, of course it needs to be a genuine relationship. You don't want to just walk up to somebody and like use and abuse the willingness of them to be able to share resources with you. But they're here for a reason. There's a reason why you look up to them, because they're doing things that you aspire to do. So they've done it successfully. What is it that they did that you can do now? And the only way you'll know is if you actually ask them. And so there's that level of just being intentional with, one, who you're seeking to be mentors or sponsors and why. And yeah, that can be used synonymously. And I do see people referring to their mentors who are doing kind of sponsor level work. But I think because people have used mentor kind of so globally that we don't really see or pay attention to that like next level of like what else can be done to help this person. Because like I'm thinking about networking sessions where you meet someone, they're like, oh yeah, just email so-and-so, I know them, or I'll give you so-and-so's phone number. It's like, okay, now I'm reaching out to this person. They don't know anything about me. I just have to throw your name into the middle of this email and hope that they respond, versus you bringing me with you. And it's like, oh, I'm here. Now you two can go off and talk and have your own conversation. And again, a lot of mentors do that. But I think you don't have to assign separate definitions for both. You don't have to have both or either or. But if you have someone who's doing sponsorship level work, I think it can help take your career, take your professional journey or personal journey, whatever you're using them for, or in whatever capacity, to another level.
Damn, yeah. Jocelyn, what do you think?
What was the original question? Because I feel several different ways about the whole thing, but I'll focus on what the original question was.
Yeah, so I don't even remember the original question, but I just asked, like, have you had mentors or sponsors in your life? Have they been intentional, or have they just been people that you consider mentor, but they might not know that you consider them in that way?
When I was an undergrad at Carolina, I had these amazing mentors, and some of them were my professors who are still my mentors to this day, and some of them were my academic advisors. And they were so phenomenal into pouring into me, meeting me during their office hours. Every time I sent an email, they were open, they were available. Every time I needed a letter of recommendation, whatever the case may be, they were there. And it was because of them that I was able to get to where I needed to be as a public health professional. And that's why, like, me and my mentees, I pour into that, like, you gotta meet people. You have to introduce yourself. You have to be in that room with people. And ultimately, the experience that I had at Carolina is the reason why I want to be a professor, because I want to be that next generation person to future professionals. And even like with me meeting Kim with Goodstock, like, I was moving to Charleston, and people from my previous job was like, oh, hey, Kim's in Charleston and she works for Roper St. Francis and she works with this consulting firm named Goodstock. You should reach out to her. Sure, whatever. And I sent her an email and she was like, yeah, let's meet. This lady don't know me. She never seen me, never heard of me. But we had this breakfast one day at Starbucks, and here we are over a year and a half later. And I feel like all that's important, but similar to what Tanya was saying, is that I do feel like they should be synonymous. But it also racks my brain about how you differentiated them, because I could see them both. I mean, I've had amazing mentors. I continue to try to be the best mentor or sponsor that I can be. I have mentees that I've introduced to Kim to hopefully cultivate them to the next level, people that are specifically in public health. But I'm too passionate and like fascinated by this type of stuff that it like I feel like I'll just go on with a tangent. But yeah. It's important. It's necessary. And I mean, you really, and even the position that I got this position at MUSC that I have now by somebody who I met by wanting to do something that I want to do. I didn't know these people. Mm-hmm. I applied to MUSC for years and nobody ever called me back for an interview, but I met with somebody and I expressed my interest and here I am, you know what I'm saying? So I think even in comparison with the networking, with the sponsorship and the mentorship is networking also. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Tanya, what about you? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, what about you? What about your thoughts and the two?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I mean, I'm so impressed by you guys having mentees, and I guess I was trying to think if there are people who I've consistently had as mentees. I feel like it's more been where I was. So like in graduate school, like I had, like, I guess actually they were, but I never called them that because it wasn't a formal designation. And so I didn't want to assume that I was the only person they talked to. I was just like, oh, you're just reaching out because you have questions. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I'm curious if like I need to do more to reach out to people potentially who have sought me out to like check in on them. But I agree. I mean, I struggled to get into grad school. I was told by people I wouldn't get in. And I didn't have great mentorship in undergrad. I was just like a fly on the wall then. Mm-hmm. But then in graduate school, Denise, and I will like always give hands down to Denise Hien, was just like, she took me on. She like saw something in me that nobody else saw in me. And I was a barista at the time, and she just gave me a chance. And I think I did well. I think she would say I did well. And that has been like the, I don't know, like stairway to heaven or something for me. Like it has just connected me to all these people, connected me to people at MUSC. They also would not have taken a look at me before. But she has done both. Like she has been the person I seek for advice, and I try to be really respectful of her time because she's so busy and she's such an important person, and she's connected me to bigger opportunities. Mm-hmm. So I kind of, I guess, feel a little empathy for how it's like the structure is, I think, in a lot of places, because I tend to see women doing the most mentorship, but they're having to do mentorship and sponsorship, which mm-hmm. is even more of a task to take on.
Yeah. And I would say that, so I've just recently started having formal mentor-mentee relationships. Because I think for me, I was just like, well, if you're helping me, then you're helping me. I don't see the need to make it formally structured. But I was with, so there's a healthcare professional organization, acronym is NAHSE, and they have a formal internship program. It's the it's the National Association of Health Service Executives, and they have a formal internship program. And that was the first formal intern structure first formal mentor structure that I've ever experienced. And it was, here's like not necessarily a curriculum, but here are the things that you should expect to get out of your mentor or your mentor during this time. So that way it's not just up in the air, like, oh, so what do you want? Like there's structure in it, so that way you can benefit from it and they can benefit from, having their time used well, but also pairing you with people that are like-minded or that are in areas of interest of you. Healthcare, there's a bunch of different segments and functional areas that you can go into. So pairing you with people that are in the space that you want to be in, that may have similar or different backgrounds, whatever the common criteria are that they use to connect you with. But I think that for me, I like structure, as you guys know. So that was really important for me to have, like, to see, okay, what does this really mean? Because I never had to apply for a mentor before. Like, I just found somebody I liked and we just kicked it. But I think that was really important for me to see that. And also now that I've done that, because I did that mentor program, but I had already been a mentor to other people at that time. Not to say that I think my mentor responsibility or role was inadequate, but I think that it could have been a lot more beneficial and a lot more fruitful had I had or put some structure around it, especially since I was working with high school students at the time, because they have a lot going on. They're trying to figure out college, and I was just doing what I could to help them with, a specific thing or a specific goal. So I think if there is structure around it, it could be helpful for both parties to see what this relationship looks like. But of course, if you find someone you genuinely like, or someone you genuinely click with, run with that. Like, no need to force something around that if it's already there and not happening naturally. But if you find yourself in a position where, like, I don't really know anybody here, especially if you're going to a new organization, we can transitioning into the relocation topic real quick. But like, if you're relocating somewhere new and you have no idea where to start as far as finding people that you can meet, finding people that you can build off of, or bounce ideas off of, this can be helpful if there is some kind of formal mentorship program where you are or in your area that you can work through and work with. But yeah, I think both are equally as valuable. Formal mentor relationships, informal mentor relationships, having someone formally be a sponsor, having a mentor be a sponsor at the same time. I think it's just calling out what it is that you need and what it is that you want from them. So that way they're not being expected to deliver on something they had no idea you actually wanted. So yeah, that's that on that.
I feel like three of us could talk about this for a while.
About to say, I can go on and on about this.
Yeah. I love talking about mentorship because I think it's so important. Because one thing for me when I was first starting too, and then I'll move on to the next sub bullet point. But one thing when I first graduated undergrad, I was like, I knew that I had a lot of information to share, especially when I went through grad school, because there was just a lot of things that I could have done differently, but it helped to get me to where I am now. And I'm like, somebody should know this. Like, you need to know this so that way you don't do the same thing. And that's always kind of been my philosophy is I don't need to be, in this particular title or in this particular organization at this particular level to feel like I'm valuable enough to give information back or to be a mentor or share with other people. It's more so about what is it that you did that you can help somebody else do the same way or do differently because you've learned from that experience. And I think a lot of people get intimidated by the fact that they're too young, they haven't progressed in their career enough, that they can't give back in those ways. But you'd be surprised at the people, especially when you're working with younger people, high school, undergrad students. I know when I was in those grades, I was just super excited to have somebody who making money in a job to talk to me. So it's really important to just see how eager they are just to learn and not be put off by the fact that you're not exactly where you want to be in your career yet.
So what do you think that it looks like for younger professionals, likely entry-level professionals, who are looking for mentorship or sponsorship in their role, but they don't have mentors or sponsors or eligible mentors or sponsors that look like them in their positions? At that point, what do they do?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing, and I'll see if Tanya has anything to add to it, but I think the hardest thing for me, because when I first was formally thinking about like, okay, I need to find a mentor who can help me, like when I first intentionally made that or had that thought process, I was like, I need to be somebody Black because we got our own set of struggles. I need to find somebody who's doing it that can help me do it too. But I started to realize that it doesn't always have to be that there are plenty of white people and other background people that are just as willing to help you get to where you need to be. And they probably have more pull, because of their status that they have. And so for me, it was being open to all those possibilities as well. But it was always important for me to have a circle of Black professionals that I considered mentors to be able to, because there's just a different set of challenges, a different set of like only Black people would understand or only minority people would understand. So that was important for me to have somebody I can talk to about those specific scenarios, but then just being open to people that are mentors of other capacities. Because there's an individual that was at my previous organization who I consider a mentor now, that he's a white male, but he's done really well in his career, and he got the juice. Like he has what I need to know to get to where I need to be, and he's been super helpful. We don't talk often; it's not a formal mentor relationship, but I definitely call on him when I need him, and he's there to have a conversation and help me out. So yeah, I think it's for that answering your question, it's important to be cognizant of the opportunities for being open-minded of different kind of mentors, but definitely finding someone who can relate to you in whatever your background is, as a Black person, as a woman, as a Black woman, as a queer individual, whatever the case is. Find someone who can connect to you on that level that makes things more challenging for you, so you're not having to quote unquote suffer alone, if that makes sense. Because you're never alone, but there's always going to be someone you can find who has connects to you in that similar way to help you advance your career as well.
Yeah, I mean, Nat, you said it so well. I feel pretty similarly that, your mentor doesn't have to look exactly like you to be a good mentor. Or share your identities. And I guess I've experienced that a lot. Like, I'll give it a shout out to Sudie. Sudie's been a great mentor. She's my boss here. And I think one of the best things you can give people in general in the world is your time and your attention without being distracted by phones or anything else. And that's what you want in a mentor. And I think if, like what happens a lot though when you're young, like answering your question, Jocelyn, I feel is that you're nervous to reach out to someone like superior, or to send like the initial email. But I think that if you're clear about what you want, which is also really hard to do, it's hard to be clear about it. So it might just be a coffee, or it might just be a Zoom, and then that's it. But that's okay. That's still something. But I've noticed that there's so many like relationship dynamics that get played out in mentorship, which also help you grow. So like, Asians are known for having very collective families. We're very subservient to authority. We believe a lot in duty, which is a whole nother topic. But I noticed that with my mentors, that like I would just kind of wait for them to ask me what to do, and I was just there to help them. And I would never think about addressing my own needs, or I didn't even really know what my needs were. And so I think that if that becomes hard, maybe like something that I found to help is to find peers too, because they will help you. Like peer mentorship is huge, and also helping you eventually maybe finding that person.
Yes.
Come on, y'all.
I love
Come
this.
with the knowledge. Oh, knowledge.
So the last thing I wanted to talk about, and then we can wrap this up, is relocation. So I know for all of us, actually, we've all relocated, whether it's in the state or different states across the country, for professional aspirations and goals, or school maybe. So I wanted to talk to you all about what your experience was. One, deciding that relocation was going to be the option for you, and then two, how you felt once you got into that new space, and kind of what you did to acclimate and settle with your surroundings. Jocelyn?
I'll start. So when I left Carolina, I always knew that I wanted to travel. I damn sure didn't think I ever want to come back to Charleston, but here I am, child, live my life. But just growing up here, born and raised, like, really didn't get to see a whole lot. We traveled, for holidays or family reunions and stuff, but never really lived anywhere else. So it was something I just wanted to experience personally. And I'm also a Sagittarius, so we're free-spirited. So I was like, well, let's just do it. Wherever I end up, that's what's going to happen. And it was cool for me, honestly. I lived in some really odd places. Like I lived in Iowa for 3 months, and that didn't really work out the way I expected. But when I was in Jacksonville, it was awesome. I ended up like staying with what is now one of my best friends. We just happened to have been there for our training program together, and now she's like my ace boon coon. And spent some time in Virginia, which was awesome. I lived in Baltimore, and so I was able to like experience public transportation in the Northeast, and it was cool. But it also gives you that like feeling of appreciating when you come back home and you get to like be around your friends and like be around your family and things that you just appreciate naturally just from knowing the area or growing up here. But it is fearful, especially if you're unfamiliar. Like the first like month I was in Baltimore, I had anxiety. Like literally, like I was afraid to get up in the morning. I was like, I do not want to do this public transportation. Like, how am I gonna get to work? Like, what is going on? But then by the third month, I was like, I don't want to leave. This is amazing. Where has this been all my life? But you got to do it. You know what I'm saying? You got to do it. And it's one thing that I always say is like, just do it and say you did it. And that's how I felt about Iowa. I did it and I said I did it. So that's how I feel.
What about you, Tanya?
Jocelyn, you said that so great. I was just like hmming silently. I mean, like on mute over here. But yeah, I totally agree. I feel like I've moved around a lot. Like I lived in Chicago, New York, Gainesville. I lived in India for like only a couple of months teaching English, and I was broke through all of it because moving is expensive. So, just like fair warning for anyone listening. but it's worth it. Like, you feel mastery once you've done it. But I will say that, like, those first few months are like, all your poor coping mechanisms are going to come out, like, because it's hard. Change is really hard. To recreate community context, feeling grounded, feeling like you belong somewhere is not easy work. I mean, that's honestly, I can sometimes throw shade at the generation above us, because I think there was a luxury that you didn't have to move a lot. And I feel a little bit like I can't do that anymore. The world is more global and it expects people to move. And I'm also an immigrant child. So, like, literally moving is like in my DNA, like moving and building new roots. So maybe it's just something that I'm used to. But I will say that, like, I feel like something that can happen is you can get so much shade for it, for people who stay at home, or like who, like, born and raised in the same place. Like, I get this from a lot of my New York City friends who, like, were born there, raised there, they'll never leave. They were like, oh, you're going to South Carolina, like, be careful. And I was like, oh my God, like, I'm not going to fucking war. Sorry, I cursed, but like, like, this is crazy. Like, and I get defensive because it feels like it's a judgment of my choice, you know? And I'm not denying that there are problems here, but also I'm not denying that there are problems in New York. Like, I sent you guys that article about that, like the second migration. So I guess, like, I think, and that the flip side is to be, like, receptive when your friends want to move, or when people you know want to move, rather than, like, immediately judging it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So for me, my first move was, I didn't have any say in it. So it was when I graduated I graduated high school, is when we found out that we were moving to Memphis. And so I was of course going to start undergrad and college. I had no idea what was going on in Memphis. I had no desire to come to the South. I only knew about Florida because we had family there. So Memphis was like, I'm good. So I stayed in Jersey for undergrad. I was originally supposed to go to school in Pennsylvania, but decided to go to Rutgers. One, because I can still have in-state tuition by staying with my family. Yay, go RU. And then two, all of my friends were still up there. So it was just easier for me to deal with the move without actually having to move and not having to go to a completely new state like Pennsylvania for school. So after I graduated, of course, I relocated because broke college student or broke college grad. I was like, well, might as well go home. So I came to Memphis, and Memphis has been great. Like, I had nothing to say bad about being here since we moved here. And so moving here was really great, especially for establishing, like, the beginnings of my healthcare career. I did grad school here. I worked at another academic medical center out here before and during grad school, and then left Memphis. And I was, for the leave after leaving Memphis to go to Charleston, I think was definitely a lot more intentional, and I was a lot more, like, excited and willing to move and relocate, because we did it once. It wasn't really I didn't have any say in it. And I was like, okay, now I can really literally decide where I want to live based off of the places and the programs that I apply to. And of course, I applied to a bunch of different places, but I chose the places that I wanted to apply to with intent. So when I moved to Charleston, it was because I applied to, chose to, and accepted the offer for coming here. And of course, I wanted to continue to progress my career. So moving to Charleston was really was the biggest eye opener for me. One, because I was completely on my own, knew nobody, no family. The only person in the state of South Carolina as far as family. Closest family I had, probably Atlanta, and then I have a cousin in North Carolina. But other than that, I was the only one in the state. So that was a little hard for me to deal with, because even when we were in Jersey, we're a really big family, a super close, super tight family. In Memphis, it was just my core siblings and parents, just the five of us, but we were still very close, very tight. So moving to Charleston was just like, now you got nobody. So what you gonna do? So for me, I knew that establishing, like, a social network was going to be important, but it took me some time to do so. Not until like a year into me living out there did I do so. I mean, I had colleagues at work that I, connected with, but I sometimes don't like really mixing work and, like, my social life. Like, you can go to happy hour, but you don't really know me like that. But yeah, once I established that social network about a year in, through a group, actually, it was a GroupMe for young Black professionals in the Charleston area. And I met a lot of my close friends through that I met when I was in Charleston. And so for me, that really helped me establish my roots, as well as doing things like volunteering for community organizations, I was teaching dance at a bunch of studios in the area. So that really helped me connect with the community. So that way I felt like I belonged. Still felt like an outsider, but at least I felt like I was giving something back to Charleston for, allowing me to be a resident of the area. But yeah, that was really, really, really interesting for me and definitely taught me a lot. And then of course I moved back to Memphis. So that's a whole other set of new challenges for me to face, especially in light of COVID. But I think moving is definitely a good opportunity for people to take if they have the chance to, especially when you're younger, you don't have any dependents, or you don't have a spouse. Even if you do have those things and you have the opportunity to relocate, even if it's to a different city, a neighboring state, it doesn't have to be a big, coast to coast jump. But I think there's a lot to learn just from domestic travel in general that people can, discover, or people can find. Even just cultural differences from moving from state to state is huge. And a lot of people I know seek international travel to kind of fulfill those kind of cultural diversity needs. But there's a lot here in the States that we haven't uncovered or discovered that I think is important for us as citizens of the country to know. It's interesting when I think about other countries and how they know so much about the US, but we hardly know about our own country in the same ways, let alone other countries. But yeah, definitely from a professional development standpoint, don't be afraid of exploring those kind of outside your comfort zone opportunities, because you never know where it can take you. Even though it may feel weird and may be challenging at first, but almost always worth it.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of piggyback on that is that, I don't want to remain here in Charleston. Sean moved from Savannah here to Charleston, and I couldn't move to Savannah because there's no public health or healthcare opportunities there. So even when it comes to finding the hub for your profession, so I think even for public health, that's like Raleigh or Houston or Atlanta or the DMV area, DC and stuff like that. Just kind of going where you're going to find a mass production of opportunities in what you do. So.
Jocelyn, do you know where you want to go?
Raleigh. Raleigh's probably going to be my final destination.
Okay, good to know. Driving distance.
Go Tar Heels. So.
I mean, I was going to also piggyback on in saying that, like, moving in COVID is not a hurdle I have done. And I can imagine that moving is great and, like we're saying, has all these opportunities, but it must be really hard in COVID. And I know friends who've done it, and I really just empathize with how hard it was for them to meet people.
For sure.
Don't even get me started on meeting people, because y'all, I was in Iowa for 3 months in the prime of their winter, and the whole state is 2% Black. So I don't.
Oh my God.
It was impossible. It was unbearable. All right, y'all, let's go through some shout outs. I'm going to start. So I do want to give a shout out to my brother, Kutta. He has a podcast called Poor Man's Poetry. You can visit it on poormanspoetry.com or visit it on LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, on Twitter or Facebook. And basically it's just a podcast about, don't laugh, Tanya. It's a podcast about the music industry, life and business and things like that. So yeah, check out poormanspoetry.com.
I was not laughing at his work. I was laughing at you saying LinkedIn is the place that he's going to drop this stuff.
Where would I get LinkedIn from?
So my shout out is tying back to our sponsorship conversation earlier, and it's Jamie Tynan. She is based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and is a founder of 100 by 2030. So she has an initiative to help sponsor and or mentor 100 women, I believe, specifically by the year 2030. So she's really about this mentor sponsorship lifestyle, and really is who has helped me understand the differences between the two and understand putting intention behind both of those efforts. So you can find her on LinkedIn. I think we could probably put all these shout outs in the description box and on the YouTube channel. So we'll have the spellings of everything down there for you to find them. But shout out to Jamie.
Awesome. I might look into that. Okay, so mine is, y'all can hear me okay, right?
Yep.
Okay, I thought there was like a Zoom lag. So mine is the TRACK program, which I was a part of. It's TRACC. It's Translational Research and Addictions for Racial and Ethnic Minorities at City College of New York, Columbia University Medical Center, and now at Rutgers, because Denise, the head of the grant, is at Rutgers. But basically, it's for anyone who is a bachelor's or MD student or a PhD student or a grad, like even an MA student, just to get training in research. But the reason I really like this program, I mean, like this program has really impacted who I am today, is that in my interview, one of the first questions they asked me is if I had ever been mentored or if I ever had a boss of a minority background. And I was so stunned by that question because I, one, had not, and two, I was like, oh, am I allowed to talk about this in an interview? Like, this doesn't seem professional. And so that is just like I guess like a trailer for what they're like. Like everything is out on the table, and they're an amazing program where they pair you with a mentor and they care so much about mentorship. So I will also put that link so we can put it in the description, and they need people every year. So if you're a student wanting some mentorship.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you for joining us. Tune in for episode 3. We're going to do some more deep diving, and we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.